Welcome to this Bodywhys webinar with myself, Harriet Parsons, and Dr. Fiona Flynn, who's our Youth Development Manager. And today we're going to be talking about our work supporting students in schools, in second level schools. Fiona's going to talk to us about some of the research behind what's needed to build resilience in young people around eating disorders and body image. And she's going to talk us through our wonderful new schools program called the Inside Out program. And then I'll talk us through what to do if you're worried about a young person. So, first of all, let me hand over to Fiona. Fiona, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Harriet.
Do you want to take it away?
Yes, perfect. I will just share my slides. So thank you all for joining us today. It's great to have so many teachers joining us from second level schools around the country and youth reaches. And just so important that we focus on talking about this area because unfortunately what we know is that eating disorders are on the increase. So just going to go back to the beginning of my slides here. Sorry, it seems to have started. Sorry about that. Okay, so today's my slides will focus on talking about, as Harriet said, I'll start off by talking about some of the research. So I'll talk about the relevant research in Ireland around eating disorders and also around body image. I will also talk about the co-design of resources for use in the school and youth group setting, and how these were designed with teachers and also with young people, and the importance of doing that so that we have resources that are easy to use for teachers in the classroom setting, and also then that are relevant and engaging for young people. So I will introduce you to and give you an overview of the Bodywhys Inside Out program, and I will talk through some additional resources and supports that we have in conjunction with the program that you can share with parents and also with students. And then I will just show you how to access the program and give you a little bit of a look at the resources as well before handing over to Harriet then to talk through how to support a student that you might be concerned about within the school setting. Okay, so as I said, really, really important that we talk about this area. Unfortunately, research tells us that eating disorders are on the increase. And we can see here the first bullet point there, the number of under 18 hospital admissions for eating disorders has increased by 43% in the last 5 years. And that was taken from a report by the Health Research Board in 2023. So that would obviously be at the very severe end. So very, very worrying to see figures like that. What we also know is that eating disorders are starting earlier. So we're seeing increases in preteen children, so children in primary school and developing eating disorders. And the figure there at the bottom indicates an increase in hospital admissions for eating disorders in young female adolescents as well. So very worrying trends. So that's what we're seeing in Ireland. And this really is in line with what we're seeing worldwide. So the title there, Alarming Rise in Eating Disorders, is taken from a research paper looking at international trends around eating disorders, which indicate that eating disorders are on the rise worldwide. So we're seeing it in the US, we're seeing similar findings in Europe and also in the UK. So it's really important that we develop resources that are effective, that are easy for teachers to use, and that will actually make a difference. So that is really our intention for the Inside Out program. So that's what the research tells us. Now, last year we conducted research amongst teachers in Ireland. So there were 231 secondary school teachers who responded, and 45% of those indicated that they were concerned, very concerned, about students in their schools who had eating disorders. These are some of the comments that we hear all the time. I've only included a snapshot of things that we hear from teachers all the time. We have a considerable issue with students in our school not eating while in school. Students not eating for the whole school day, saying they had a breakfast at home, and parents reporting that they only had an apple for their dinner. This is a trend that many schools are talking about maybe students not eating, groups of students not eating, and then that culture starts to kind of take over within the school environment and the problems then associated with that. So many over-exercising and under-eating, pushing their bodies beyond healthy limits, or restricting food intake in an attempt to control their appearance. So this is what we're hearing time and time again. So it's really important that we talk about the dangers associated with these behaviors in a way that will support young people to, realize early if their behaviors around food or exercise are becoming unhealthy, and also what to do about that. So that's what we're hearing from teachers. What we're hearing then from young people is the same, essentially. So we're hearing about these trends to not eat or really restrict food intake, and also kind of real trends towards extreme behaviors around exercise. So just going to read through some of these. These quotes were obtained from young people in focus groups, and also young people in the Bodywhys youth panel. When my friend went to college, she couldn't believe that the girls just ate when they were hungry. At our school, talk about food, calories, and avoiding food was normal. Again, this is something that we're hearing all the time. The pressure to exercise is massive. There are so many boys who have no flexibility around exercise. They avoid social activities to not miss exercise. With football, what to eat or not eat, that really gets obsessive. It has been totally normalized, not eating. Extreme dieting has been glamorized, and this really is what we're hearing all of the time. That's on the eating disorder side, or on the extreme behaviors around food or exercise. So what are we hearing then in terms of body image? In terms of body image, we are hearing that body image concerns are very common in young people, that most young people in Ireland report body image concerns affecting their mental health. So body image concerns so severe that it is impacting on their mental health. And that figure is 65% at the top that we see is from an Ombudsman for Children's Office report from 2023. The My World survey too indicates a significant relationship between the amount of time that young people spend online and the impact that has on body image. So on their body esteem, and also on other aspects of their mental health. So depression and anxiety as well. And the bottom figure there indicates that in a survey of 500 girls, 61% claimed that because of social media, they struggled with low body image. So these are some of the kind of things that we are hearing. So again, this is within the Irish context. And how does this relate to international research? So again, we're seeing the same thing worldwide. Worldwide, body image is estimated to affect 75% of adolescents. And why is that worrying? I suppose it's worrying because negative body image is widely regarded as a primary risk factor for disordered eating behaviors, such as restrictive dieting, binge eating, muscle building, and the development of clinical eating disorders. So it's really, really important that we pay attention and that we do something to support young people to feel more positively about their bodies, to accept their bodies and to treat their bodies with kindness, and to support their well-being in general. So that's really what our research is about. And doing that, as I said earlier, in a way that is relevant and engaging for young people. So that was the international research there. And just to kind of give you a snapshot of what we hear then from young people about body image in Ireland. And again, this is taken from focus groups that we have conducted over the last couple of years. The social media stuff is crazy. You see all these perfect bodies and it makes you feel like you need to look like that to fit in. It's always in the background, even when you're doing other things. So that's the media ideas, the kind of images that we see. I never see people like me in the media, and that can really get to me. Social media, can get you comparing yourself and feeling bad about yourself really quickly. And it's hard to get out of that. Now, this is what we're hearing from young people. So a lot of those comments there you could see were related to media messaging and also the kind of pressures that people associate with social media. And again, that's echoed by research internationally. So international research highlights the link between social comparisons on social media and negative body image, and also how that can impact in terms of depressive symptoms and also disordered eating behaviors. Now, what we also know, and this is so important, is that we can't demonize social media. So this is where young people connect with each other. What we know is that connection to their peers is one of the most important things for adolescent development. So it's really important that if that's where they're meeting and that's where they're connecting with their friends, that we don't demonize social media. So the way that we talk about social media and the way that we talk about social media in our school programs is about empowering young people to move away from the negative effects, the things that are really putting them under pressure, and move towards the things that are having a positive effect on them. So we can see here this quote at the bottom is from the American Psychological Association Health Advisory also, and they indicate that social media in and of itself is neither inherently beneficial or harmful. So the effects are really dependent on the way that it is used. So it's really, really important that we think about that and that we are mindful of that in our communication with young people. So what can we do? Research widely acknowledges that effective prevention is required to support adolescent psychological well-being. Research also indicates that a school-based program is the best way to access a wide variety of young people within their peer environment in a cost-effective way. So essentially, that's what we have done. We have developed the Bodywhys Inside Out program. Now, as I said, it's really, really important that when we're putting together a program, that we consider everything, that we really talk to all of the young people that it will affect, that we talk to young people, the people who it will affect, and that we also work very closely with teachers to ensure that we have a resource that is easy for them to use and meets their needs within the school context. So what is the Inside Out program? The Inside Out program is a two-part educational resource designed, so there are two different lessons. The first lesson is about promoting awareness of and understanding of eating disorders and the supports and treatment options available. The second lesson is to improve body image and social media literacy in students through videos, open discussion, and expert-led learning. So there are those two lessons. The whole program was designed in conjunction with teachers, mental health stakeholders, and young people from a variety of youth organisations, including Spun Out, Belong To, Webwise, Corlin and Oak, the Bodywhys Youth Panel, and also Feroga. And it was done through a multi-stage engaged research process. So the Inside Out program is evidence-informed, developed by Bodywhys in collaboration with those key stakeholders, and also in conjunction with Maynooth University and the Centre for Mental Health and Community Research there. The Inside Out program combines expert input with real voices and also interactive exercises to really kind of maximize the take home for students so that they're interacting with the program, they're really considering all of these areas. They get the opportunity to talk about these things within their peer environment to produce, real attitude and behavioural change. The programme supports both knowledge development, emotional growth, helping students to foster positive mental health themselves and also compassion for themselves and others. So this Inside Out program, Bodywhys have developed a number of different programs, and the Inside Out program essentially builds on the success of an earlier Bodywhys program called More Than a Selfie program, which was piloted in 2018 and was shown to have a positive impact on body image in both male and female participants. So it improved, it reduced the impact of the muscular ideal in males, improved body image in females, and also had a positive impact in terms of social media literacy and behaviours. And the feedback from the youth participants who were involved was really, really good. So 91% said that the programme was good for their class, and 87% across all of the schools who participated indicated that they would recommend the programme to a younger friend. Now, the More Than a Selfie programme was delivered by teachers within the classroom context, and regardless of teacher delivery style, the results were really positive. They were positive for in terms of the impact, but also in terms of the student feedback. So we learned a lot from that. We worked with teachers. Obviously, with anything like this, video resources go out of date very quickly. So it's really important that we continue to, and things change. So it's really important that we continue to conduct research and ensure that the video content and all of the different aspects that we cover are relevant at the time. So we went back to the drawing board to talk to teachers again about their experience of delivering the programme and also what they would like to see now for a schools programme. What are the kind of issues that are coming up? It was, as I said, a multi-staged engaged research process. So we had focus groups with young people in school and also community settings to get their feedback around what they would like to see. We had semi-structured interviews with teachers and also guidance counsellors, and then we had focus groups with teachers, and all they were involved throughout at each stage of the co-design process. So from the focus groups, what we heard from young people was what they really wanted, and we heard this previously with More Than a Selfie research also, was they wanted videos of what other young people have to say. You know, we need to have videos that we can talk about to get us started and make sense, you know. So it takes the onus of people having to talk about themselves as well. So the focus is on what they've seen in the video. Standardized content. So what they said, and this came up in all of the focus groups again with young people, it needs to be the same in every school. Some teachers are good at delivering this stuff, and then it's not fair if you get a teacher who isn't, you know, and I think that's really fair, isn't it? And teachers get so little training around SPHE, and it's very difficult to deliver sensitive content, you know, so this is a sensitive topic. So it's really important that the onus is taken off teachers. So putting together video content is one way to do that. And interestingly, the feedback from teachers in the focus groups and also the semi-structured interviews was the same. So we don't get any training, so they will need to be easy to use or they won't be used. Videos, group discussion, that kind of format is ideal. Easy to access, not much time to prepare. 2 lessons. So the More Than a Selfie had 4. Feedback was too long, you know, we will deliver it, but it's much easier for us if it can be condensed and it's in 2 lessons. We've a very broad curriculum within SPHE. 2 lessons, 1 on body image, 1 on eating disorders is realistic. We listened to all of that. They also said videos, youth content that is relatable is great. Real life stories, videos need to be short. All of that feedback from the young people and the teachers was taken on board. Our objective was to develop a school-based programme which would improve body image and well-being and use evidence-informed approaches to do that. We wanted to challenge current pressures to body image, such as social media, peers, and media messaging. Promote awareness of eating disorders and the supports available. And we wanted to do all that in a way that would work, be easy to use within the school setting, acknowledging the barriers to delivering well-being content within the school environment, such as lack of training, as teachers outlined, time constraints, and also then the very real fear of delivering sensitive content. So all of the sensitive content is delivered within the videos. We just going to move on from that. I think we've kind of covered that. So how did we do that? So we have video content, resources and lessons using evidence-informed approaches to, as I said, identify and challenge pressures to body image. It uses cognitive dissonance activities. So it encourages students really to speak out against unrealistic media ideas. So, you know, that kind of discussion within the peer environment is really, really powerful. Promote media and social media literacy. Encourage them to have a critical mindset in terms of looking at media messaging and then discussion around that to affect attitude and behavioural change as well. And then we wanted to promote awareness of eating disorders in a real way, you know, package it in a way that would be easy for students to understand. So there's expert input alongside real life stories, which kind of indicates how an eating disorder started, talks about the first signs for a person, how an eating disorder started, how it affected them, the symptoms, the cause, the progression. Enable the young people to be able to kind of recognise what an eating disorder might look like, and also that it can affect, you know, that eating disorders can affect anybody. and skill building to promote early identification of the risk factors associated with an eating disorder, and to empower young people to seek help early if they're concerned about themselves or if they're concerned about somebody else. So that was really the objective. So the final version of the program, and so the program was launched on the 15th of October last year. As I said, designed for ease of use in the classroom setting. Each lesson includes videos, student worksheets, teachers' guides, and then online supports. So there are 4 videos for each lesson. There's 4 videos, first of all, for the eating disorders lesson. Each video is very short, so they're all in or around 5 minutes long. And the plan is that the teachers show a video, then students are given a worksheet. The worksheets can either be printed off, or the worksheet can be displayed on the interactive whiteboard, and then the students in groups of 2 to 3 will go through and answer some of the questions that are posed in the worksheets. Now, teachers will have a corresponding teacher's guide. So for each question that is posed in the worksheet, the teachers will have a teacher's guide, which has the answers and also suggestions and prompts for how to encourage the students to get talking about this area. So you see there from left to right, on the left is the student worksheet. You can see there's a corresponding teacher's guide. And then you see over in the right-hand side, we have a section, new student section on the website to correspond to each of the student worksheets. So you can see at the bottom of the student's worksheet and teacher's guide that there's a QR code. By following the QR code, they can access this new student section of the website. Now, we're fully aware that even if you have printed them off, that they might lose their worksheets. So we wanted the program to be accessible and these additional resources to be accessible anyway. So there's a new student section, a new drop-down menu on the website, so students can just go on and have a look. And I suppose the idea is that if you get talking about these things within the classroom setting and students want to explore the area a little bit more, that they can go on and do that then in their own time. And you can see here on the right, the students' sections are really very youth-friendly. The images are very appealing, and there's very little text. So they're really kind of very little text, and then lots of links to podcasts, articles, videos, different things that young people will find engaging in terms of encouraging them to change their thinking, to support them to improve their body image and improve their well-being more generally. Okay, so how to use the resources, as teachers indicated strongly that preparation time really needs to be very short. So what needs to happen is teachers just have to log in. I'll show you that now. I'll give you kind of a demo now in a minute. Print the teacher's guide. They don't need to print the students' worksheets. They can if they want. Teachers can if they want, or you can display the worksheet, as I said, on the interactive whiteboard, and then have the web page with the relevant student pages open so that you can show students that as well. The lesson format, very easy to use, and this information is also on the website. You watch the videos in order. So for example, you watch the lesson 1 video 1 first, then split students into groups of 2 to 3 people, and they do worksheet 1. And you do the same then for each of the subsequent videos as well. So, and then follow the QR codes on the worksheets to show the students the additional information and links. So this is just some teacher feedback that we got in the final stages of showing teachers the new resources. And the feedback was really positive. I'll just read through a few of their quotes here. You've thought of everything. I can't wait to use these resources with my class. It's so needed. It's one part of the SPHE program that we don't really do. There's not a lot of resources on body image or eating disorders. It's so relatable. It's all so relevant and so important. Really well done. It's incredible. I think this will be really brilliant in classroom with boys and with girls. So I will just show you the resources. I'm just going to stop sharing this and go in. And just try and share these here. Okay. Now, so can you see the supporting secondary schools and youth groups? You see that page there? Okay, perfect. So in order to access the resources, you will go to the Bodywhys body image website. So you can see here at the top, there are a number of different sections. There's a section on improving body image. There's a section for teachers and youth workers, for students, parents, carers, resources, and then contact us. So one of the things that teachers indicated was that it would be useful to have information to share with students, but also very useful to have information to share with parents. And what we hear from schools is that in advance, sometimes of delivering programs, that they will send an email out to parents saying we're going to be covering this area. And if they're doing that, it could be useful to share links to the Bodywhys body image section of the website. So you can see here there are 5 different sections for parents. And it could also be useful to share links to the Bodywhys main website. So we have a family support program and the pillar program. So Harriet might just touch on those at the end as well. So that's something else that you could mention if you're emailing out through your school app or your VSware to parents, to let them know that you're going to be covering this within the SPHE classes over the next couple of weeks. So that's just an idea for you. So just to show you where you access the program, so you can see there's lots of information on this website. You go to the teachers and youth workers section, you scroll down to the number 6 there, secondary school resources and lesson plans. And once you click on that, then you're brought into this area here. So register for Inside Out resources. So you click on that and you will just be required to input some short information about your school. So just the number of students that you intend to deliver the program to, and your county, and a couple of different things, just so we can gather statistics on where the program is being used and how many students that it's being delivered to. So once you input that information, you will be brought into the web page where the resources are housed. So you can see here that it's very straightforward. There's a couple of different drop downs there that you can link into if you want, just to get the program overview. I've given you most of that information already. There's a lesson 1 overview, lesson 2, and then very clear information here around how to use the resource. And much of this I have already described, just around printing the teacher's guide, displaying the student worksheet, and then just what order to do things in. So you'll see also we've got week 1, understanding eating disorders, first of all. And then as you scroll down the page, there's a little summary of each thing, but you'll have the video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4. Now, in advance of doing that, you will have you'll have printed off your teacher's guide and opened your student's worksheet. So it tells you how to do both of those things there, and there's the link is clear. So that's how you access it. So you've got week 1 about eating disorders, the 4 videos, and then you have week 2, the honest conversation about body image. So let's go to give you a preview of each of the weeks, just to give you an idea. So this is just a short 1-minute preview of the video content for week 1, understanding eating disorders. So as I said earlier, there are 4 different videos, and this is just really a synopsis. It's really important that we talk about eating disorders so that people will recognize the signs, and also that they will know how to get help, and that it is possible for people to fully recover.
We didn't have anything in school about eating disorders. I didn't really know anyone who had one.
I was kind of lying to myself and fooling myself, thinking, oh, this is fine. Weighing myself, trying to move more every day, trying to eat less, examining my body image in the mirror.
I thought it was like a good thing to be on a diet. It was just never enough, really.
Going out with friends, you might avoid that because you don't want people to see you, or there's going to be food there.
You are not able to live life because everything evolves around your food. Full recovery from an eating disorder is possible.
I hope that somebody sees this, and if they can relate, kind of stop themselves from going down a path that is so damaging and so scary.
Okay, so that's just a brief overview of the lesson 1. Oh, sorry. The lesson 1 videos, and there are 4 different videos, as I said earlier, and there's an accompanying worksheet for each of those. The emphasis in the worksheets for the week 1 videos is around encouraging students to consider ways to be kind to their body, and exploring those kind of themes. So it's all very practical, and all really around supporting them in identifying early if there are any kind of unhealthy behaviors around food or exercise, and what to do about that, and also just building positive relationships with their bodies. So just going to show you also synopsis of the videos for lesson 2 on body image.
It's really important that we talk to young people about body image to really get a sense of what the issues are. What are those negative influences to body image? And what are the things that have worked for them in improving their body image?
The people around you kind of have an extremely positive effect on your body image or an extremely negative effect.
There is like such a standard that everyone is trying to meet.
Boys as well.
Why do you look so perfect?
Yeah.
You know, like why can't I look that perfect?
I think it's so important to see that social media isn't real.
Try and bring a little bit of positivity into the friend groups. I like to go for a walk, take a minute and be like, are you doing good?
If somebody is posting and that's having a negative effect on you, unfollow them. If you have to block them, block them. Just put your piece first at the end of the day. Content second, please.
Okay, so that's just there the synopsis, as I said, of the videos in the body image lesson. And again, all designed to be really practical and explores all of the themes that were coming up in the focus groups around body image. So just a couple of slides here that's the website where you access everything. These are 2 posters that we have also that you can, so if you get in contact with Bodywhys, we have some posters for schools. This one is for display in the staff room around the importance of promoting positive body image in young people. And this one then is for display in communal areas within the school with body image top tips for young people as well. And there are the Bodywhys supports there. And I suppose really important, and Harriet will probably say this at the end as well, that if you're supporting people that you're concerned about, it's really important that you make some time for self-care and looking after yourself too, because if you have a student that you're concerned about, sometimes very hard to leave that behind. So it's about figuring out ways to support ourselves if we are concerned about somebody and supporting them as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass over to Harriet now just to talk you through some ideas for supporting students that you might be concerned about within the school environment.
Thanks, Fiona. The Inside Out program just looks so amazing. Really excellent video content. You know, I can imagine it really keeps everybody's attention as well, the way it's filmed. So it's fantastic. So I'm just going to, I suppose, think a little bit about, if you are worried about somebody, what are the helpful things to think about maybe before you approach them or as you're supporting them. And I guess to start off with thinking maybe about who is this person that we might be worried about. So a person who develops an eating disorder probably has lots of anxiety. So they're very anxious. They're often very detailed focused, quite black and white thinkers, very all or nothing. And there's also huge sensitivity there, both to how they're feeling, but also how to everybody else is feeling as well. And a huge sensitivity towards kind of being successful or being a failure, and lots of kind of internalized all or nothing thoughts around that in relation to themselves. And also, I suppose an eating disorder is a coping mechanism. It's something that a person engages with because it helps them to feel better. And so they can be quite defensive of it and resistant to the idea of talking about it, and especially resistant to the idea of change, because on the one hand, change is really frightening, and on the other hand, change in some way means letting go of their eating disorder, and that might feel overwhelming for the person. So when we're thinking about this person, then what are the signs that you might notice within a school setting with students? What we've heard from teachers and from parents is that they might notice weight loss or weight fluctuations. They might notice a preoccupation with dieting or with this clean eating or with exercising. And as Fiona mentioned in some of the early slides, we hear a lot from schools of bunches of students not eating during the day and watching what their peers are eating or not eating. There might be a lack of concentration. They might look pale, limp hair, not really have any energy. They also might be working too hard. They might be that overly organized and very busy student, that kind of real straight A type student. And they might seem to have this kind of superpower energy as well. What that they seem to be able to study for hours and work really hard and do their sports and manage everything really well. You might be thinking, what's going on there? There's no let up, there's no resting. There might be low mood, a change in personality, turning inwards, not mixing with friends, withdrawing from group activities. So there's lots of those kinds of signs that we hear people noticing in students that they're worried about. A good thing to remember is that when a person engages in disordered eating, especially if they have an eating disorder, that's really like an alarm bell, like a sign. It's a signal to us that, the person manages how they're feeling or copes with their feelings by controlling their food and exercise in some way. And so when we see those disordered eating behaviors, it tells us that the person is struggling emotionally, that the person is struggling with anxiety. And if we solely focus on what the person is doing, it encourages them really to get more defensive and to defend those behaviors in a much stronger way. So we would always say, try to focus more on how the person is feeling rather than what they're doing. So try to talk to them about how they are in themselves rather than whether they're, haven't eaten lunch each day this week or whether they've been over exercising. It can just help to lower their defenses and help to make them a bit more open to a conversation. Because we're building up to the idea of trying to connect with the young person, that unless we're able to connect with them, we can't be very helpful. So we want to think about these things before we open up a conversation with them. And it's part of the preparation. So to think through yourself, why am I worried? What have I noticed? To be really concrete about those things and to be able to, say them to the person. And then at the same time, not only to focus on, those concrete things about what they're doing or not doing, but to shift the focus to how are they feeling? Is there something stressing them out? Is there something going on for them? To think about, how can you make somebody feel safe? It's very difficult to open up and speak to someone if you don't feel safe. And I would always encourage people to think about, are there people in your life that you would avoid talking to about something personal? And why might that be? When I ask that question in groups, the usual answers I get are because they might minimize it, because they might start talking about themselves and about how they have something worse, because they might immediately start trying to offer me solutions or things that I should be doing, or because they're afraid that they won't keep it confidential. So they're often the reasons ourselves that we might avoid talking to somebody about something private or personal. So think about that in relation to yourself. If you're preparing to have a difficult conversation, you want to be the type of listener that the person feels safe opening up to. You want to connect with them. You want the young person, to feel that you're trying to understand rather than trying to kind of solve the problem or tell them what to do. So you want to build up trust with them. So being prepared is that thinking through those concrete examples. Read and gather knowledge maybe about eating disorders if you are worried. Treatment pathways, know what the support options are. Also within your school, know what your own policy is. Remember the eating disorder is a coping mechanism. We always encourage people to externalize the eating disorder. And really what that means is see the person and their eating disorder as two separate things. So if you make the eating disorder an it, then you can talk to the person about it without the person feeling that you're talking about them, or that they're not internalizing feelings of blame or guilt around it. So the goal is to achieve connection. Because an eating disorder, if a person has an eating disorder, it doesn't get better in a couple of weeks. It can be a significant period of time before the person is well or is out of it. And if you are the support person within the school setting for that person, it's really helpful if you establish that really trusting connection from the very beginning. So to think of that first conversation as the first of many more, and you want to always leave the door open. You don't want to overwhelm it too much at first. If you achieve one thing in a conversation, that's enough. There can be plenty of other conversations where you can achieve other steps along the way. So don't put yourself under too much pressure either to say everything or do everything or know everything. It's a much better stance to take to be curious about what the person is experiencing rather than assuming you know what's going on for them. So how can you help them feel safe? Be thoughtful about when and where you talk to them. You're not trying to convince them that they have a problem. Usually, the person with the eating disorder is not at first able to acknowledge that they are struggling or they have a problem. So we expect that resistance and we roll with it. And by rolling with it, what I just mean is we acknowledge that the person might not agree with everything that we're saying. And at the same time, we are trying to move forward in terms of supporting that person. So thinking about who else needs to be told, thinking about, say, going to the GP, thinking about what the next steps are. And you want to try and take that in a collaborative way. So to work with the person, what will we do? If you were going to talk to one person, who would that be? So there's no should about anything, any of this at all. And of course, the eating disorder lays traps for us all over the place. It will want us to start engaging in a food or weight conversation with the person we're worried about, because that is safe ground for the eating disorder. So try not to get caught up in food or weight conversations. Try not to get caught up in whether they actually did have lunch on this day and we just didn't see, or, really they're fine, they eat a lot when they go home. Just try not to get into those conversations. The reality is that you're worried for a reason and you're expressing your concern. We always say, don't assume you understand what the person is saying. Be curious as to when they say something, what do they mean? So they might say something like, yeah, I haven't been feeling great. I haven't been feeling like I can eat, or, I just really love running, and it really clears my head. And absolutely, that's absolutely true. And at the same time, there's a balance. So to be curious about why they're doing what they're doing, rather than saying, well, you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. We expect them to be resistant, to be afraid, to be defensive. And so we acknowledge that rather than minimizing it, dismissing it, or trying to convince them otherwise. From the beginning, the collaborative support is the idea of coming up with shared decisions, about bringing the person along with you as much as you can. And there's a great acronym to try to remember when you're doing that, and it is called LEAP. And that means to listen to the person, to empathize with them. So that means trying to understand that they feel X, Y, and Z, to agree on one thing and partner with them to do that. So that agreeing with that one thing might be, we're going to talk to your parents and let's figure out when we're going to do that, how we're going to do that, and what we're going to say. Remember, the person will be ambivalent. A person with an eating disorder often feels that offers of help and support are in some way controlling, or they feel kind of coercive for them. So we expect that resistance to change. And that's fine. the less you insist they change, the more they will trust you. And so you have to really be clear about what your role is, because your role might not actually be to try to convince the person to eat X, Y, and Z, or not do so whatever exercise, or eat regularly, whatever it might be. Your role might be to support them while there are other people focusing on those bits. So we would always say, know the boundary of your role. And if you're not sure about the boundary of your role, always ask. So if the person is in treatment and you're not sure what the expectation is of you, always ask. We need everybody to be on the same page. Praise can be a very difficult thing for a person with an eating disorder. And praise with young people is something that we try to do a lot to try to encourage them. There's a balance when the young person has an eating disorder. And so rather than just outright praising them all the time, it's a much more effective form of boosting their self-esteem if we're able to acknowledge the effort they're putting in rather than the outcome. And that might mean that, say, a student is coming and they're supposed to, have lunch, and maybe on this particular day, because they're very anxious for whatever reason, they're finding it really hard to have lunch. Affirming for them that you can see they're really trying really hard, regardless of whether they eat it or not, can really boost that young person's sense of self-esteem. They might not be able to acknowledge that to you in the moment, but what we know is that all of those little affirmations go into their head and, grow kind of self-esteem roots in their sense of self as well. So we would always say affirm effort rather than outcome. So what do you do in a practical way then? Well, talking to school support staff, you talk to family, and you talk to the person. So whoever those people are within your setting and for the young person. What needs to happen? So think about who does need to be told. Obviously, parents need to be told, principal might need to be told, guidance counselor, whoever the important people are that are the support people within your setting. GP, CAMS, GP can refer into CAMS, that should say CAMS.AMS because we're talking about young people. GPs often have resources, I know within your locality as well if there are other people who might have experience working with eating disorders. But with young people nowadays, with the new specialist eating disorder services, GPs should always refer into the CAMS service. Okay, that's really important for you to know, and that's all outlined in our treatment guide. So in terms of preparing and what to read and what to look up, our website has lots and lots of information, kind of everything you would need to know before you start off on this with somebody. And there's our treatment guide, there's our family guide, there's also a guide for speaking to your GP. There are lots of supports for the person with the eating disorder and for the family. As Fiona mentioned, we have a family support package, and signing up for the Pillar program, which is a 4-week psychoeducation program, is kind of the first step into that. And all of our services are free to use. We also have a really helpful web page on the website called Approaching Someone, which will talk you through step by step the things to think about before you have that difficult first conversation. In terms of treatment options, obviously there's the public and private. It can be helpful for you to know what are those different pathways, and it can be helpful for you to know for the family and for the person what exactly are the supports that we offer. So all of that information is on our website. In terms of ongoing support for the young person and your role, again, like I said, be clear about what that is, because you want to be aligned with the treatment approach. And that means, say, a young person does go in for a stay in an inpatient unit, and then they come out and they've missed a couple of months of school and they're coming back to school. And your job is to maybe support them in that transition back to school. You will need to know the boundaries of, say, the lunchtime and the morning snack. So, do they need a separate room? Are they okay eating with everybody else? You know, do they want you there or not there? And what to do in the case of, say, they stop eating or say they get very anxious around it. So just so you're clear on what's expected of you, what you're happy to do, and what are the boundaries of that. So you kind of need to know what's going on in the treatment for you to be able to align yourself with that. So don't worry about ask those questions. It'll be really helpful for the young person to know that you are asking those questions and that everybody is on the same page about, what the boundaries are and say some of the language, what to say and what not to say. So if you're in any way unsure, always say to the young person, is it okay for me to say this to you? Would you find this helpful? Would you not? So we always say use your not knowing as a tool to kind of build that connection with the person. Again, separating out the eating disorder from the person. I would always say leave any of the food and weight talk to the treatment team. I wouldn't get into those conversations with a person with an eating disorder because the eating disorder can distort anything that you say in a very destructive way. Be very careful as the young person starts to improve about judging their wellness based on their physical appearance. We've heard from countless people over the years, that when somebody with every good intention says to them, gosh, you look really well these days, that they misinterpret that as, oh, you're telling me I've put on weight. That means that I'm letting go of my eating disorder. I'm not sure I want to do that. That's freaking me out. I'm very anxious. I'm going to go back into my eating disorder. So it can just really backfire. So be very careful about judging wellness by physical appearance and be very careful of that praise. In terms of the young person lapsing, so going a bit backwards or going into a full relapse, we would always say, not to catastrophize that. Not to worry too much about it, that everybody goes backwards in order to go forward stronger. And the most important thing when somebody does say slip back a little bit is to get them to talk about it and to figure out, okay, what was going on there? What wasn't in place that maybe needs to be in place? Have you got too much on your plate? So exploring the whys of it rather than kind of catastrophizing and think, oh gosh, they're getting really bad again. I hope that all makes sense. And as Fiona said, and that core message from the Inside Out program is that a full recovery from an eating disorder is absolutely possible. And Fiona and I know it because we know so many people who have recovered fully. So we really want to get that message out.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Harriet. And thank you to all the teachers who have joined. And just to echo what Harriet says there, and really the trust of the program, and I suppose we're so mindful that in every classroom, so teachers might be aware of some students that they're concerned of eating disorders, but we know that that's just the tip of the iceberg. So often we notice a student maybe who has really dramatic weight loss, but there could be lots of other students who are affected. So we're really mindful that there will be students in every classroom who might either have an eating disorder themselves or some kind of concerns, or they might be concerned about somebody else. So we're so conscious, and the emphasis in the program is very, very positive and really echoes that message of hope and recovery. So to encourage people, I suppose, to seek help also.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Fiona. Fiona and I have been working together for about 15 years or so now?
16 or 17.
16 or 17. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, it's lovely to kind of reach this point. And I think the Inside Out program really is a culmination of all of that work. It's something that you should be very, very proud of, Fiona. Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it. We hope you've all enjoyed this webinar. And if anyone has any questions for us, you can email them to info@bodywhys.ie, and we will endeavour to answer them for you. So thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you.